Here's a weird idea for a movie. Casting John Candy as a talking horse and having Bobcat Goldthwait use him to get tips on the stock market. Whose idea was this? Apparently 4 people wrote this film, one of whom has the last name Nair, so of course he's gonna write a movie about a fucking horse. This was his only feature film credit. In fact, Hugo Gilbert also never wrote another movie. I wonder why. The third writer was credited for some other comedies, including Blade on Rio and Three Men and a Little Lady. However, the fourth writer is Andy Breckman. A lot of you may not have heard of him, but he's written a lot for Saturday Night Live and created the show Monk. So he's been pretty successful. And hey, Randy Newman did the theme for Monk. In terms of movies, Andy Breckman did Moving, which starred comedy legend Richard Pryor. This movie, Arthur 2 on the Rocks, Sergeant Bilko, which I actually like, and that piece of shit comedy Rat Race. So his movies haven't been as good as his TV work. He rewrote some of the dialogue for Don the Horse, but his script was ultimately not used in the film. Anyway, you have John Candy as a talking horse and Bobcat Goldthwait. This movie is awful. It's one of the worst 80s comedies I've ever sat through, if you can even call it that. Anyway, the film is about a guy played by Bobcat Goldthwait, which reminds me I'd rather be watching Police Academy. And those movies sucked.
Pure and simple.
Don't touch those! Don't you ever touch my balls without asking.
He ends up meeting the talking horse Don, played by the late great John Candy. Of all the scripts to pick, why this one, John? You were in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Why? Just why? I mean, ugh.
Are you mad at me?
John, I love you, but you were in some shitty movies. So you have Bobcat trying to get investment tips from a talking horse. Oh my fucking god, is this plot dumb? It makes Mr. Ed look like the fucking Godfather. Bobcat ends up getting really rich and starts using Don to make a lot of money. I mean, I guess I could see the plot working if the film was funny, but it's not. It's like when you hear the plot of Bozo Goes to Sleep. It sounds kind of funny, but then you remember Ronald Reagan starred in that movie. There's a lot of really pointless subplots that go nowhere.
Here's a good idea. Have a point. It makes it so much more interesting for the listener.
He decides to enter Don into a horse race. Which reminds me, I'd rather be watching A View to a Kill. He ends up winning the race by distracting the other horses. You know, I'll give it this. The horse race isn't as ridiculous as A View to a Kill. Then again, it'd be hard to top a horse race between Roger Moore and Christopher Walken. Dabney Coleman loses, probably because he placed an unlucky Dan. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen The Sting, go watch it. Great movie. The horse races in that movie were interesting. Mostly because they didn't show any actual horse races in that movie. Hell, Racing Stripes was better than this. What the fuck is Racing Stripes? It's that movie about the zebra that becomes a racehorse. I saw that movie. Yeah. I'll have to start proofreading Jake's lines for filming these reviews. A fucking Racing Stripes reference. Anyway, that's the movie. Oh, I forgot Burgess Meredith plays Don's dad. I guess that makes sense, since he trained the Italian stallion. He dies and reincarnates as a fly. A horsefly to be more specific. It doesn't help that none of the jokes are funny, but you also have all these actors and comedians who are wasted in a nonsensical and stupid plot. Bobcat Goldthwait has been funny in other movies like Scrooge, or hell, he was one of the better things about the Police Academy movies. John Candy, a great actor and comedian, has been very funny and very good in tons of other movies like Stripes, Spaceballs, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, The Blues Brothers, Uncle Buck, and Home Alone. It's too bad he was in such awful movies like this one, though. Gilbert Gottfried is also in this movie, briefly.
You fool!
And Dabney Coleman, who has appeared in so many movies, I can't list them all. Overall, this movie is terrible and just steals the audience's time. I mean, I guess they were just horsing around when they made this movie. Sorry, couldn't help myself. I'd rather just go watch some fucking Mr. Ed reruns or something.
You remember the thing about Mr. Ed, don't you?
Mr. Ed? No, what is Mr. Ed?
There was a thing, do you get CNN here? You watch the cable news network?
Yeah, there's Mr. Ed that's
okay, well, I saw this story on CNN. There was a preacher in Ohio. They had videotape of a record burning. There's all these kids in the middle of the night burning Billy Joel posters and records, and this preacher had discovered, and I don't know how he did it, that the theme song for Mr. Ed, played backwards, says, "Satan is the source."
That is, of course, unless the opposite. Well, listen to this.
Now, what kind of a preacher has time and energy to get the Mr. Ed theme song, plays it backwards, and hears that, you know? But he got his name on television, so maybe he got a couple extra donations that week. That's